Hi there, and welcome to another Real Talk with Dr. Jim Sharps. It's a pleasure to have you back with us. For those of you that know how we do it on this channel, Dr. Jim and I, we have a quick, brief conversation, and we look at aiming really to demystify a lot of topics from the perspective of original medicine. We focus on kind of giving very practical, actionable information that really will help you as you watch this video. Enjoy outrageous health, or at the very least have awareness of how you can start a journey to improve your health and move towards enjoying that outrageous health. So Dr. Jim, thank you for being with us again. In terms of the topic for today, we're going to have a quick talk about stress. We're approaching that festive season. Sickness is flying around. There's lots of late nights. There's a lot of, I would say, breaking of the nutritional rules. So stress and anxiety is there on the body. So we wanted to cover that, especially at this season. So first question really for today, Dr. Jim, how do you recognize stress and what is stress? Maybe we can start with a definition. What is stress and how does it, how would you get a handle on it and frame it?
Yeah, stress is one of those things that basically is a result of some kind of perceived short-term event that is kind of threatening at times. It could be financial, it could be driving in traffic, it's trying to meet a deadline, just even good things, positive things like getting ready to get married, moving. So it's usually related to some kind of a specific event. And you're really, actually, it's kind of related to anxiety. You get kind of anxious about it. Anxiety doesn't necessarily have a specific kind of a cause, but they're kind of related, but they're not exactly the same. But stress is kind of when you actually are going through this actually emotional kind of battle within yourself, and which has some clear physiological effects as well. So it does affect your health, it does affect your vitality, and interestingly enough attention isn't given to the emotional side of health and vitality, and there's kind of a three-layer approach, and anxiety, the emotional side, is right in the middle of that.
And you brought up an interesting point there, even though we're kind of focused on stress in this video. What's the difference between anxiety and stress?
Well, they're kind of related, as I said, but anxiety doesn't necessarily have to have any kind of a specific. Anxiety doesn't. It usually may not have a specific cause. You just basically, it could be a personality type, if you will. You're just anxious about everything. You're anxious when you get up. It doesn't relate to anything. Whereas, as I said, the stress is kind of related to some kind of a specific event. So that basically, without being clinical about it, and I don't know if the psychological Oxford Dictionary would point at it that way, but they are kind of related, but they are different. And the way I would distinguish it is that the stress is more specific oriented to some kind of event or something that's coming up, where anxiety can be just general and no specific event attached to it.
Yeah, that's clear. So how does stress present itself? What are some of the common presentations or symptoms, if you will, of stress?
Yeah, and that's really good. Well, stress has physiological effects. It affects the chemistry of the body, the cortisol levels, the epinephrine, the norepinephrine, the prostaglandins. And so when you start throwing these out of balance, they can have some major impacts on the body. It takes a lot of energy. You might notice that kids, they don't have stress. They're having fun all the time. In most cases, they're out there playing, they're running around, they're doing all kinds of things. But as you mature and you have responsibilities, things of that nature, that stress comes into play as you get older and get more responsible, and there's consequences to the kind of things that you're involved with. It has some clear physiological effects. and that can affect the short term and long term health and vitality. All the emotions do, but stress in particular has some clear physiological effects, as I said, pretty much on the adrenals, and with the cortisol, the epinephrine, the norepinephrine, and that chemical imbalance, which anything that is going to cause an over impact on organs, tissues, glands is going to impact your energy level. And if it's long term, it can result in pretty consequential physiological events, which we call health conditions or diseases that we can give a whole host of Greek and Latin terms to.
Yeah. And in terms of like at a practical level, are there things that, you know, are kind of common indicators of getting above your stress tolerance level? You know, for example, lack of sleep.
Oh, yes.
Ability, you know, are there a few practical things that you could kind of share with us that if these things are happening, you might want to consider that you're overstressed?
Yes, that's a very powerful question, because what you're really leading to is what is your susceptibility, what is your vulnerability? And just like anything, just like germs or any of these other issues, the more vulnerable you are, the more of an impact it's going to have on your health. So the higher your nutritional level, the higher the functional integrity of those organs and tissues that are being affected, the less impact it's going to have on your health. So if you have a prayerful life, for example, if you have a very positive outlook on things, if you have other emotions and you have other outlets, exercise. When you're exercising, you're focusing on the exercise, you're not focusing on that event or those things that are causing and fueling that stress. So you look at those other laws of health, the nutrition, the exercise, as I mentioned, getting out in the fresh air. So the more you are focused on those laws of health, the less vulnerable you are, and consequently, you can deal with it a lot better. Whereas on the other hand, you can see it. It manifests itself in facial expressions, and that's the outward sign that you might have stress. But then you can actually do actual tests that basically demonstrate, oh wow, you are really stressed out, because you can see the actual chemical imbalances that occur as a result of stress, whether it's manifested outwardly or not. You can have that smile on the outside, and yet on the inside, it's like that duck going on the water. He looks so nice, gliding across, but those feet are kicking like anything. And so you can have a whole lot of turmoil going on inside. So that's a very powerful question, because it basically speaks to not only how to mitigate it, but how to cure it as well.
And final question here, Dr. Jim, you touched on it already in terms of the 8 laws of health. Maybe you could just share one or two very practical things if people feel they are stressed, or some of the they're seeing the signs of stress that you just mentioned. What are kind of 2 practical things that you can do to reduce your stress levels?
Yeah, one of the easiest one is find some kind of recreational outlet. It can be bicycling, going out in the fresh air, anything that's going to take you out of that mode of just concentrating on those stress elements. So exercise and variations of that. Exercise manifests itself not only in terms of physical exercise, but amusement, recreation. So that is a very, very powerful outlet. Another one that you mentioned earlier, right in the beginning, is nutrition. One of the problems with stress is it impacts the functional integrity of the digestive system. So you get, so if you know you're going through stressful situations from a nutritional standpoint, you want to be able to eat foods that are more digestible. So you don't want to impact it by adding on to the other physiological impacts of the stress itself with a very difficult diet to eat. So you want to eat a simpler diet. And then another one that you kind of mentioned kind of casually earlier is rest. So there are 3 right there: getting enough sleep, trying to build up your immunity, if you will, to those factors that kind of impact the level and the length of that stressful period that you're going through.
Dr. Jim, thank you so much as always, just giving us a whistle-stop overview of stress from an original medicine perspective. This is a topic that's come up very regularly recently in our water cooler conversations. For those of you that don't know, we have an online community that we'll make sure a link is in the video description. But we have an online community where we come together every Tuesday on a Zoom call. Boundaries, stress, conflict. These are some of the themes that we cover on that water cooler call. So if you do want to explore these topics in a little more depth with perspectives from others, do definitely consider jumping onto our water cooler call every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. But Dr. Jim, thank you so much for kind of giving us that overview. Appreciate your time as always. And for those of you watching, if you have comments, you have questions, please leave them below. We do monitor the comments. And if you do want to engage more with others on this topic, do consider joining our online community that's free to join. But Dr. Jim, thanks again, and we'll see you again on the next video. Bye for now.
God bless. Bye for now.